Hi Taurus, welcome to your October 2016 general tarot reading. As you can see, I've laid out the cards already because ... Mercury retrograde. I mean, why not blame it for just about everything as long as I have the opportunity? But actually, when I realize something is not right, it's sometimes easier just to start over. And the other thing too is, if you have your opinion on whether or not I should keep doing love readings separate from these types of readings, which are general readings, please put your 2 cents in the description, or I mean comment section below, because I've been getting feedback already and most people seem to like to have separate love readings. I can see both sides of it, and I feel that love readings are the most popular type, and so it makes sense to devote more time to them than you can if you're splitting a general reading. But you know, this is a perfect example, this thing that I've done right here, where this is a general reading, and as I was putting out the cards, it looked to me to be very much about career. And luckily, I've already done a love reading, so if you're interested in just focusing on that, just check out my channel. If you're subscribed, you should have already gotten it in your feed, but if not, just look on my channel and you'll see the Taurus love reading for October. And so I'm going to kind of focus on, I guess, career, if anything else comes up. But as I say, I can see both sides of it. So anyway, the overall energy for October is the Tower card. So this is some kind of event that may take you by surprise and may shake your foundation. And some people think, oh my God, the Tower card. I think it can be very helpful, especially for a sign like Taurus that tends to cling to the known or cling to situations that are no longer serving them longer than they should. Sometimes certain people cannot seem to initiate, and so it's almost like they wait for life to be the one to make the changes. And I actually read that somewhere and I thought, oh my God, because I really can relate to that. I can relate to being that type of person who didn't, take the first step. And what happens, as what I read said, is that then whatever, it tends to be a pretty bitter lesson when you're not constantly trying to move your own life along and just kind of drifting on the surface. What happens is that when you finally do see the change, it tends to be very severe because you're neglecting a lot along the way. And so it's much better to be more proactive and not just be passive and wait for these types of things to shake you to your core. But this can actually have a very nice effect. It can really enliven you and energize you, I should say. Because whatever happens can cause you to kind of, it's like kicking you in the butt, getting you started, getting you to do something that you should have done on your own. And it doesn't have to be a calamity. It might just be something that you didn't expect, okay? And remember that the universe is conspiring on our behalf for our happiness. So no matter what is happening, even if it feels like it's too much of a change or too much of a disruption, particularly, it can still get you going energetically. And that in itself is very valuable, because I feel like Taurus can get very much in inertia. I have Taurus rising, so I know of what I speak. And sometimes we need to get that kick in the pants in order to get back into the game and really, you know, start to be like the magician and be that conscious co-creator, instead of somebody on the sidelines wondering when certain things are going to happen, but not having the impetus to actually make them happen. The recent past, we have the Queen of Swords. So this may have something to do with whatever the surprise event was. What I had said in the first video to you was a scenario where a woman in a position of authority, and the typical example is a woman boss who may do something that you were not counting on her to do. Now, it doesn't mean that you lose your job, but it can mean that you were counting on a promotion and she gives it to somebody else. She is a really detached person, a real cool cucumber. She is not somebody who gets easily manipulated, and she can make decisions under a lot of stressful conditions. And as a result, she can make hard choices. And it may be something that really takes you by surprise, what she has done. Also, this could relate to a personal relationship. It could be a woman who features into things who is of the element of air. So it could be a Gemini, Libra, or Aquarian, or somebody who has a lot of air in some of their other signs other than the sun sign, but in some of their other personal planets. And so she's very detached, and she doesn't realize that she's just, you know, created the towering inferno with your life. And she might not even care, because she's on a mission. She has something that she wants. When I see queens, it can be mother, so it could have to do with your mother, especially if your mother has that characteristic of being more mental than emotional. But it could also be a mother of somebody that you're seeing, the mother of their child, and either she's in the picture with him or she's intermittently with this person, this man, and there's like a three-way situation. Maybe he goes back between you and her, and now she's in the picture, or she was in the picture, and there was, you know what, maybe you didn't even know that she existed, and that was when you found out. And that's what the Tower card represents, that you found out that this person was, maybe you knew that she existed, but you thought that he was done with her, and he wasn't. But it could also just be that she dropped a bombshell. Maybe she contacted you. Maybe she dropped a bombshell about him because she's trying to break you up. Something along those lines. And the current situation is the Seven of Pentacles. And this is a card of, you know, assessing the growth of an enterprise. I feel that for some of you, you may have left your jobs, and you might have left under less than happy conditions, because of something that just, it was like a sudden thing. Maybe you were fired suddenly and you never knew what hit you. And so you just said, that's it. I'm done with depending on other people to, you know, provide me my livelihood. I'm just going to do this thing on my own. And it could be something very earthy, because the Pentacles do relate to the earth, and the Seven of Pentacles is the farmer's card. So you may decide to, I was going to say grow herbs or something, or, something to do with like it could be something, as a Taurus, you really do like to run your fingers through the earth. So it could be, buying a small organic farm, a mini farm, or doing something that is along those lines. Maybe working with flowers. I'm trying to think, but it can be anything that is your own endeavor. And the Seven of Pentacles is you either thinking about it and not having done it yet, and thinking, will it provide me what I want? Or you have done it and you're seeing the first fruits of your labor, but it's kind of trickling in, and you have to realize you have to have patience. And you do have patience, but when it comes to money, some of you may feel like it's not coming quickly enough, and that is something to kind of work on. The higher perspective is the Nine of Swords. So this may be a time when you're experiencing anxiety over the issue. One of the things, this reminds me of the Eight of Swords, this Nine of Swords, where the person is really doing it to themselves. It could be that you're blowing things up and you're making things more than what they are, just because you're feeling a sense of anxiety. And what you have to do is you have to be able to accept uncertainty. And the Tower card is a perfect example of perhaps being thrust into uncertainty on a moment's notice. And one minute you thought everything was fine. Oh, sheesh. I was hoping that siren would go away, and now it's getting closer. And so the whole idea of certainty is an illusion. I was saying this to somebody online today. And, a lot of times people get suckered into this idea of financial security and job security. And these things simply don't exist because we do not know what tomorrow will bring. And that doesn't mean, we should adopt that philosophy of eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we will die. No, because that's the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme of just being totally gluttonous and, not having any kind of, what would you call it? Just restraint. But the problem is that, as I was saying to somebody, I don't think we came here to be safe. It's okay to a certain degree, and we shouldn't be too foolish, that's for sure. But on the other hand, the challenge, the Tower card is a challenge, but challenges really can stimulate us. Sometimes people think the ultimate thing for them to do is to retire and to be quote unquote financially secure when they retire, and then they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs, and they had no life other than their job, and then all of a sudden they're thrust into inactivity, and they don't feel like their lives have as much meaning. And it isn't because they're not working at that place. It's because they never cultivated things to bring them meaning. And so when you have the Nine of Swords, what are you thinking about? What thoughts go through your head at night? Are you thinking of the worst case scenario? Sometimes I think it's helpful just to say to the universe, I'm at your mercy. I'm not going to worry about it. And I remember I did this once when I was in this position and I had no idea what was going to happen. And I felt like this immense peace because I gave up resistance. I was so afraid of what was going to happen that I was kind of like tight, and I was in that frenzy. And then I just kind of like surrendered to it. And it wasn't long after that the tide began to turn and things got better. So that may be something that you have to do. It's certainly not a major thing. These are minor arcana energies. As a matter of fact, outside of the tower, there's all minor arcana. So it's like this event kind of is a catalyst. Okay, and the event does not necessarily take place in October. It may be the centerpiece because it may be the aftermath. Okay, so what crosses you is the Seven of Cups, and this is another seven. You know, I picked the Seven of Pentacles. So the number 7 is a number that's associated with spirituality, with going within, and actually just being alone. It's in the case of the Seven of Cups, it can indicate having a lot of options, but there can be confusion as a result. And sometimes with the Seven of Cups, it can be deception, where somebody is telling you something really rosy, but it's not necessarily going to pan out for you. So when I see the Seven of Cups, I think about people that, and I'm talking about in the challenged position, I think about people that are not really clear on what they want, so there's not an alignment with purpose. That is, I think, your first job or task, is to really get clear on what you want. Whether you are still in a particular job, or whether you have lost a job, or whether it's a relationship issue. Maybe you're in between relationships and you may have a lot of opportunities, but you're not really clear-headed at the moment for whatever reason. Maybe you're still reeling from a loss that happened, you know, in your career life or in your romantic life. And so until you get very clear on what you want, which sometimes starts with knowing what you don't want, until you do that, you will be kind of, it's almost like grasping at straws or just fumbling in the dark. The best way to be a manifester, in the greatest sense of the word, is to be as, you know, confident of what it is that you want to have your life become as you can be. If you're ambivalent, if you're unsure, which is kind of, you know, ambivalence is like being torn between two possibilities, or maybe more than two possibilities. And being unsure might just mean that you're not even fully on board with your dreams. Then that can obviously create a lot of havoc in your life. Now, I'm trying to think about, yes, I do believe that your 11th house is Pisces, is it not? It's got to be. So the 11th house is the house of hopes and wishes. In September, if you're listening to this, you're going to have a lunar eclipse in this house on the 16th of September. And even if you're watching after the 16th of September, don't worry, because an eclipse can actually have a long-lasting effect, and it might not happen on that exact date. But in the 11th house, it can be that something comes to fruition that you've always wanted. Maybe it's something you've been working towards, or maybe it's just something that's in your heart of hearts. And so that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 11th house, the house of hopes and wishes. Maybe you will find out what that thing is, and that will give you clarity at the time of the eclipse. It will kind of, but usually, you know, the lunar eclipse is a full moon that's very powerful. But from everything that I've heard, it's something that takes something out of your life. So I don't know if it has the same properties. I would assume that it does, only more powerfully, where it can, you know, bring things to culmination, or give you, kind of put a spotlight on it. And if so, that can be really helpful to you to be able to navigate in the future of what you want, so you're not in a fog. The attitude that is helpful is represented by the Ace of Wands. So this is suggesting that there is a new beginning, and it does relate to you and your own business. So just like I said with that Seven of Pentacles, I do feel that some of you are really strongly embarking upon this. It might not be your it might not be your only job. You may be kind of dipping your toe in, but you are very resolute that this is what you want to do. And there's a sense of, expectancy, excitement, and passion that is generated in the month of October in this area. Again, it could be the aftermath of that lunar eclipse, where it's like, things are happening that make you aware of all of your dreams possibly being able to be fulfilled at some time. Maybe one does get, but there are other ones that you have that you're hopeful about. And so it's really a new beginning, but an exciting new beginning for you. And that you have to, in this position, it's more like cultivating that mentality to really believe that this could be possibly happening for you. It isn't anything that you actually have to do, although you might have to take some action steps to initiate some new endeavor. The wands can, tend to relate to career and ambition, but entrepreneurship, I can never say that word. But so the advice is the Five of Swords. This is one of the cards that I saw that was making me think that some of you may have had some kind of situation of underhanded behavior being directed towards you. So as advice, I would say that if you still are in a workplace where maybe you're dealing with a boss that is being unfair to you, and maybe you are unhappy where you are, that you refrain from going with those people, because there may be people, it may be saying watch out for the people around you. It's not just this woman, it could be other people in that workplace, like your co-workers, who have it in for you, who are kind of manipulating things behind the scenes, and maybe even like in cahoots with the boss. This would be particularly true if you're the type of person who is not kind of willing to engage in negative behavior with everyone else. So you're kind of being treated like you're, an outsider, and you're being looked at with suspicion. And it's really because they want to drag you down with them, and you're refusing to do so. So that might be the advice, is that you need to really watch your back because you're dealing with snakes. And if you're on your own, it could still mean the same thing, that maybe you have people in your life that aren't going anywhere in their lives. And if you have your own dreams of what you're doing, you might want to keep them to yourself if they're in the initial stages, like the Seven of Pentacles kind of suggests, because they may be naysayers. And it's amazing how easy it is for somebody to plant a seed of doubt when you're trying to, resurrect yourself or do something positive. There's always people that kind of like to, create doubt within other people because they're not doing their dreams, and it threatens them. It really does. It makes them have to think about themselves. And then the outcome is the Eight of Pentacles. This is like you working really hard doing what you love. And that saying, they say, if you are doing what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But this person really is working. And some people, they may have to get some kind of training to be able to do what they want to do. And that might be what this card represents to you. Or it just is you rolling up your sleeves and you're happily doing this because you know it's bringing you freedom. And you don't mind rolling up your sleeves, you know. Taurus gets the reputation of being lazy, and they're not lazy. It's just that they don't want other people pushing them. When you are doing it yourself, you can really feel a sense of, you know, that kind of pacing yourself, where you know when it's time to rest, when it's time to really just go at it. And when other people are kind of interfering, it can really irritate you. And you don't like to be hurried because you like to do things like a flow. Okay, and so that is an example of why sometimes it's so helpful to be doing your own thing, and why you may flourish if you are doing that, especially if it's like a labor of love, which this card represents. So in any case, Taurus, I hope you enjoy this, and if you'd like a private reading, please click on my website, which is below this video in a link. Otherwise, have a wonderful October. Bye.